to Afternoon Express. In a world that never seems to slow down, where depression and anxiety often lurk in the shadows, it's crucial that we pause and reflect on our mental health and our well-being. I'd like to welcome clinical psychologist Alexa Scheer to our studios, where we're going to unpack the importance of mental health and the valuable support that SADC provides for those in need. Welcome to the show, Alexa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, before we started, you said to me, this is something that I'm really passionate about, which is mental health. Tell us why.
I guess it's a universal experience that we all have mental health, just in the same way that we all have physical health. And I guess just the ability to relate, doesn't matter where you're from or who you are, how old you are, what race you are.
Yes.
That it's something that I think does connect us all as humans. As we go through life, we are impacted.
Yes.
And so it's always been something that I've been fascinated by. And I find when we talk about mental health and when we acknowledge our lived experiences, it can be very connecting.
Absolutely. And I have to say, you started by saying something that it's a universal experience, which it absolutely is. But have you found, as a psychologist, that recently, with the advent of the rise of social media and people being more open about what they're going through, that has allowed other people the essence of permission to speak about their own mental health and well-being?
Yeah, I guess there is something very powerful about vulnerability. And I guess social media, it emboldens people ever so slightly with maybe the anonymity that it provides, to be a bit more frank about who they are and what they're going through. And then as more and more people are vulnerable, it gives others permission and the strength to recognize actually it can be really helpful.
Yes.
Of course, it's a double-edged sword, because it also exposes people to other people's vitriol and comments that can sometimes really break someone's mental health down.
Yes.
So it can be a bit of both. But I think there is something very powerful about recognizing the strength that it takes to share, and how helpful it can be to recognize that there's other people who can relate. People find it so helpful to know when they're not alone.
Yes.
And I think it's given us a great amount of recognition that this is something that everyone struggles with.
And talking about recognition, we're commemorating Mental Health World Day. What does that mean for you?
I guess it is. It's just a recognition that this is a universal issue. We can often get so bogged down by the issues that South Africa presents and things like that, but it's a recognition that throughout the world, we are needing to recognize and place value on the importance of mental health and what it means. Because I think, unfortunately, globally, we have never really spoken and educated people on what even is mental health. You've got from the get-go, when you're young kids, you can talk to them and you can say, what happens when you're sick? Where do you go? Then young kids will be able to say, go to the doctor or do this or that, and they'll play even doctor and things like that. But even adults have gone through their lives not knowing what is mental health. How do we understand the world of emotions, the world, the chaos of our thoughts and the impact that it can have on us? And so the misconceptions and the stigma that has surrounded mental health for many years is really problematic, and it hinders and prevents people from getting the help that they need.
And moving forward. I love that you say that we've got to recognize mental health in the same way that we do physical. I had an incident with my daughter a couple of years ago where I took her to school, and in the school parking lot, she was having a breakdown. And I realized that I absolutely could not let her go to school that day, because I wouldn't be listening to her and I wouldn't be recognizing what she was going through. So we drove home, and I sent an email to the school principal and to her teacher to say that she is not mentally well at the moment. And it was so empowering for both me as a parent and for her to see that there are days, as you would have a stomach bug, sometimes you're not going to be mentally okay, and it should be recognized with the same kind of weight. For me, that's one of the most exciting things about being a parent, because I certainly didn't have that when I was growing up. This kind of thing was like shunned upon, number one. And number two, it's like women always just pushed through, when it came to anything that they were navigating. I want to bring it home, because I know that you've got an international client base. What are the differences that you find in terms of the experiences that people are having from a mental health point of view globally, as opposed to your clients back home in South Africa?
Well, I suppose even the clients that I do see who are overseas are South Africans.
Okay.
So the fact that I can relate to them having lived in South Africa, I think is important. But at the end of the day, I bring it down to just what makes us a human. And I think that's the thing, is obviously there are differences between genders and between racial groups and the demographics, and how those layers of identity intersect obviously creates differences in people's experiences and lived experiences. But at the end of the day, as human beings, we all have emotions, and we have difficult thoughts and feelings sometimes, especially in reaction in relation to a difficult situation.
Yes.
And so it's also just about bringing it back to that base foundation of seeing each other as humans, but obviously then taking the unique context into consideration. And I think, you've got to understand, whenever you're dealing with a variety of, say, South Africans, that people's lived experiences are different. And it is important to recognize the different contextual factors that play into how someone's mental health has been impacted. So,
yes.
Understanding the layers of nuance that comes with someone's experience, because you can deal with depression or anxiety in a variety of different people, but it'll present differently, and people's lived experiences of those different mental health issues is unique, just in the same way that as humans we are all unique.
Yes. I want to touch on this because I think it's important, because it's certainly linked to mental health, and that is stigma. How do we deal with stigma? For someone at home that's sitting with something that they really want to share, or something that they need assistance with, but they are afraid of being judged.
Obviously, I think mainly it's just educating people. So I think mental health issues has been sort of associated with personal failing or personal weakness. Whereas, again, we don't look at physical health issues in the same way. We don't look at someone who has the flu as though they're not strong enough, and so who doesn't have the flu is much stronger. That's just not how it works. As human beings, we get sick. And so needing to educate people in that way, that it doesn't say something necessarily about who you are and your level of strength, but the fact that you are a vulnerable human to life, and some people are predisposed to have these kinds of mental health issues, and other people aren't necessarily predisposed, but something happens in their life and it affects them.
Absolutely.
So education is a big part of it. And then I think also reducing the shame. Even though, I'll use a personal example. I'm obviously very educated in mental health, and I have been for a long time. But when it came to my own anxiety, and when it came to trying to, eventually go on to treatment or deal with my anxiety, it actually took a while even to recognize that it's okay to need help. This is something that, and since I have started, it has been very helpful. But there was something interesting, and I realized that I felt a sense of shame. I felt a sense of failure. What does this mean? I'm a psychologist. Can I not manage my own anxiety? And I realized that there was a deep layer of shame that I didn't even know was there. And so it's not just about educating people, but it's also about trying to shift this narrative of it being a shameful, admission that, I've got to be honest about this thing. It's not something that, again, it doesn't have to represent who you are. And in fact, what I really always try to emphasize for people is that acknowledging within yourself, sharing with others, and reaching out for help takes an enormous amount of strength. So, to recognize and to acknowledge, it doesn't actually say anything about you as a person, but if anything, it just is an indicator of your strength.
Thank you so much, Alexa. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please do visit SADC's website at www.sadc.com to learn more. On social media, we would like to know, what is something that you do regularly to look after your mental health?